Hi, before we get started, just a quick note. We're going to take over the whole screen, but don't worry, we'll be opening up for Q&A towards the end. Thank you. Hello, and welcome to the webinar, The Power of Workflow. Automate processes to work smarter and faster. Give me a second. Sorry about that. My name is Rajaram, and I am the product manager for Workflow here at Salesforce.com. Along with me is Jose Amfuero, who is the Premier Support Account Specialist here. Our goal in this webinar is to provide you with an introduction to workflow technologies available to you in the Force.com platform, and we want to do that by providing hands-on demos. Hopefully, by the end of this webinar, you're going to walk away with a good understanding of the power and the capabilities of workflow in the Force.com platform. So let's get started. So before we go, this is our safe harbor statement. Many of you have probably seen it. It essentially means please do not make your purchasing decisions purely based on what Jose and myself are going to talk about, but purely based on what the features available at the time of your purchase. All right. So here's what we'll discuss today. I'll spend the first few minutes about a vision of workflow at Salesforce.com. Then I'll spend some time about what workflow really means, especially within the context of Salesforce. Then I would like to spend some time on why workflow really matters to your business and what are the benefits you stand to gain from leveraging it. Well, this is where the slides end, and we will take a look at the features available in Force.com, and Jose will going to go through a series of demos. If you have been an admin, say, for the past 2 years at Salesforce, you might have already noticed that the workflow in Salesforce has come a long way. Some of the key features worth mentioning are time-based workflow, which we support about hours as well as days granularity. Email alerts to contacts and related users. We introduced parallel approvers, which lets you route multiple requests to multiple people. And also dynamic approvals. Well, our vision here is to enhance the technology to let you automate even the most sophisticated business process, but more importantly, in a very easy-to-use manner. So what's coming up soon? Well, here are but a few features currently being worked and prioritized on, which probably will be released to you in the next couple of years. Coming very soon is the ability to override the from address for email alerts. This is one of a very popular feature in the AIDA Exchange, and thanks for your vote on that. The process visualizer is a feature which was released in beta last release. Hopefully you guys had a chance to play with it. Well, it's coming out of beta next release, and with several other enhancements we'll see shortly in demos. The process visualizer was a first foray into providing a graphical representation of approval processes in Salesforce. Well, the next evolution of that is a graphical approval process editor, which you're working on really, really aggressively. Along with that, in the area of workflow, there are several other features. We have cross-object workflow and also a more high-performer time-based workflow with less than an hour granularity. So these are some of the quick features I just wanted to highlight so that you can get an idea of what we're doing in the next couple of years. So what is workflow anyway? Well, to put it simple, in one slide, it is essentially a set of rules which enable you to take timely actions, whether it's immediate or you can schedule some actions which needs to be executed at some point in the future. And you use it to pass information, tasks, and or documents between different people, both within the organization as well as outside the organization. You can also integrate with third-party systems. Well, the overall goal is to automate any business process in whole or part. Why does it matter, though? Well, there are three things to talk about. What do you typically do with workflow? Well, you define the processes in your organization. To a lot of people, this itself is hugely rewarding, where there is a clear documentation of what the process is and everybody is aware of what the process is. And you define the rules and the approval processes and what technologies out there to automate these processes to you. What pain points are you trying to address? Well, the first which comes in my mind is improving efficiency. We all know that automation of processes almost always removes any unnecessary steps. The next is you improve your process. As you automate your process, you gain information and insight into it over time that allows you to analyze them and go back and improve it. It enables you to have better process control. As you automate your process, now you have a standardized process throughout your organization, no matter who the user is. And any good workflow tool will provide you an audit trail capability. Both of these essentially provide you the ability to have a better process control. And finally, what good is the information you have from running all these automated processes and the information you gain out of it if you cannot use it effectively? Well, this is my favorite part of any good workflow tool, where it should provide you the ability to be agile and flexible, to learn what you got from these automated processes over time and apply them to improve it. It could be to increase the efficiencies. It could be to streamline the process better, or it could be because there are some legal aspects from compliance issues where you have to put a new process in. You need to have a tool that lets you make changes to your process very quickly, rapidly, and hopefully without writing any code. And finally, what are the tangible benefits you get out of using workflow in your organization? When you have a well-documented process and automation, along with the audit trail, you essentially reduce risk and ensure compliance. This is especially true for approval processes, where you need to have an audit trail of who approved what and when. And we all know that automation of processes consumes a lot less time and resources, so you save costs. You can also improve customer service. As the more consistent and standardized process you are, it is more predictable for your response to your customers. So hopefully that gives you an idea of why workflow is very important to you. Okay, so let's switch gears to see what's there in Salesforce to let you reap these benefits. Well, here are some of the features available to you, and the ones in red, which is what we're going to cover in demos. Essentially, you can approve any of your automated approval processes. You're going to take a look at the process visualizer, the one coming out of beta with a whole set of enhancements. What are workflow rules and what are the actions you can take? And what about those time-based workflow rules? And the more complex your organization gets, well, as an admin, you need to have an ability to see what's going on behind the scenes. So are there any debug and monitoring tools to find out what workflow is doing? Well, you'll get to see all these things shortly. And with that, Jose, it's all yours.
Great. Thank you, Raja. I'd like to start off today with an approval process that will provide a sales and a sales management team with the ability to keep track of discounts provided to customers over time. So as you know, Raja, in the current economic times, customers are asking for aggressive pricing all the time. But how much can you really afford to give, and how much flexibility does your sales team have without actually affecting your bottom line? Well, with just a few clicks, we can show you how Salesforce.com can help you create an approval process that will not only proactively involve the right teams on making discount decisions, but would also allow you to make such decisions based on previous trends on discounts provided to giving customers, giving you the right level of flexibility to your sales team, and more importantly, just controlling your bottom line. So let's demo how this can be done. In order to best utilize our time here for this demo, we have already created a few key components to set the stage. Those components are a percent field on the opportunity object in order to track the discount percentage, a read-only pick list field also on the opportunity object with yes or no options to track whether the discount was approved by a manager, two roll-up summary fields on the account object in order to track approved and rejected opportunity discounts, a custom link on the account object which will allow you to track over time how many discounts have been requested per account, and finally an email template which is going to be used to notify the appropriate manager of the discount request. So we'll go more into detail on how these components are going to be used in the demo. So let's go ahead and start. Here I am logged in as an administrator, and to create an approval process, I will go into the Setup section, go under Create, Workflow and Approvals, and click on Approval Processes. Select the Opportunity object, and from the drop-down options to create a new approval process, I'll select the Jumpstart Wizard.
So what's the difference?
So the difference here is that with the Jumpstart Wizard, you can use this to create simple approval processes with one step, and all the information, all the requirements will be created on one page. You can use the actual wizard to take you through the process of setting up all the different steps on the approval process for more complex and long approval processes.
So if I have a very quick, simple process where I just need to send it to my manager and I just have one page to set this up.
That's correct. So here will be the place to do it.
That's very cool.
So let's go ahead and start and just fill in the required information here, putting a name. We'll look at the email template that we're going to use, which we have already created. So it's the discount approval request. We're going to add the approval history to as a related list to the opportunity page layouts. And since we want the discount field to be part of this approval process, we'll look for in the fields and set the criteria, in this case, to be anytime an opportunity is updated and we need an approval process, a discount percent of more than 30%, then the approval process will kick in.
So if I have a different rule to say in the U.S., this is the process, and then there's a process, I just create two different processes, and automatically it'll route to the right set of people.
That's correct.
Great.
In this case, for the approver of this approval process, we're going to automatically assign an approver using a standard hierarchy field. In this case, the user's manager.
So what is this hierarchy field?
So here is where you can select where this approval process is going to go to. In this case, we selected the user's manager, which is a field located on the user page. You can also create your custom user fields, like an HR manager, or create new hierarchical relationship fields to use on the approval process.
So I can model my, say, HR hierarchy or any other hierarchy using the user object, and the approval process automatically traverses that hierarchy.
That's correct.
Okay, good.
Let's go ahead and save this now. But before we activate the approval process, let's make sure that we keep track of the discount of which discounts have been approved and which ones have been rejected by assigning different actions at the approval step and at the rejection step. So here we're going to add a field update, which once the record is approved, we're going to set the manager approved discount to yes. And if rejected, then we're going to set the same field to no.
So Jose, I noticed two things. First is there's an add existing, and the actions look awfully familiar to anybody who has used workflow rules. Is there any difference?
No. You can use an existing action that you have created, whether it's a task, an email alert, a field update, or an outbound message, or create new ones for every approval process.
So the actions are essentially reusable across rules.
Reusable across. That's correct.
And what is this lock-unlock thing? That is something out of the box?
It is when you create the approval process, by default it takes a different setting, but you can change it. In our case, we're going to make sure that when it's approved, the record is going to be unlocked for editing, and when it's submitted, the record will be locked to prevent the user from making changes until the process has been completed.
Okay, so it's great, say, if I'm submitting an expense report and I have $50 to be approved, I don't want to change the amount either during the approval or after the approval to kind of automatically make it $5,000 and get my bigger check in my bank account.
That's correct. You can prevent the user from doing that by locking the mechanism.
Great.
So with that, another really cool feature that I want to highlight here is the process visualizer. For this process, now that we have a process in place, we can click the View Diagram button, and it will show you a graphical form of your approval process, showing you all the different steps and how you can track what different actions are happening at different places. Not only you can look at it from this way, but you can also print this approval process with a printable view. You can make different notes and comments at every step of the way. It's not just the approval process, but also the annotations and all of the history that you have with the approval process. There's great navigation tools here that show you how to zoom in or out of the process visualizer. And every time you highlight over one of the steps, it shows you the details, as you can see on the right, what happens at every one of these stages.
So can I find out if a manager, I mean, this is great, but what can I find out information about, say, who's involved or what fields I use and things like that?
Yeah, for instance, in this case, we're using the discount field. If
I see that search there.
Here's a search section where you can look for that field. If I start typing discount, it will highlight where that field is being used. And I can expand and see what is happening at every step of the way with all the details shown on the right. Not only using the discount field, but you can also filter down based on the actions that are happening. If you only want to see or highlight the field updates, it will show you what the field updates are.
So if I want to find out if, say, the manager, and I just type in manager, and it'll show me where the manager is used or not.
It'll show you where the manager is. That's correct.
Great. So the printable view, can I print that? Can I get a PDF out of that?
Yes. If you have your computer set up to that, you can actually print into a PDF format document.
Oh, great. So that's great. So I can print a PDF, email it to whoever you want, and share the document about it.
Document as well.
That's great.
So let's go ahead and activate the process, and now let's take a look at what this process will look like as a user. It is now activated. So we'll log in as Jason Sales. He's a sales rep, and Jason has an opportunity here where he's going to request a greater than 30% discount. So we'll go in and fill out the information. So let's say it's at 35%. The reason for discount is a large volume deal. And we'll just go ahead and save the record. Once all the information has been put in place, you see the new approval history section here, and we'll just submit this record for approval. Now you can see the record's locked, and the approval process is pending. And it was sent to Jason's direct manager, which in this case is Lawrence. So now by this time, Lawrence would have received an email. And we can see it here. And you can see the details of the approval process, the account, the opportunity name, the reason, the discount value, and also the reason for the discount.
Great. So fine. I'm your manager. Email is great, but do I have to log in? I'm always traveling. Can I use my BlackBerry to somehow take action?
Absolutely. So two things you can do here as Lawrence. We'll log in as Lawrence, the manager, and you will have a items for approved section on the home page, looking at the item that just came in from Jason. And you have two ways to approve this. You can either approve or reject the approval process here, go into the details section, scroll down to the approval section and approve it here, or like you said, if you're on the road, you can actually do it through an email. So simply by looking to the email that just came in, we'll respond to this and say, yes, this is approved, and send it back. This will automatically go into the application, and if we do a refresh, you will see that this changed from pending to approved. And now it is approved, and it's back to Jason.
So that's great. Not only I can email to my BlackBerry, whatever I said is going to be recorded, and everything is audit trail.
It's audit trail.
And this email approvals, I mean, how hard is it? Do I need to do complicated things, email things, and all these things to set up?
It's as simple as checking off a checkbox on the workflow settings when you set them up for your organization.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So with this, we have a couple other fields that we created, which helps you keep track of the information that we just processed. So for instance, the two roll-up summary fields, as Lawrence, I can go in and look at the account that this was just created for. And here are the roll-up summary fields. One shows you the number of approved discounts per account and rejected. This one is counting one of the ones that we just approved.
So hold on. So you're saying the roll-up summary field somehow is all integrated with the approval process the moment you approve and automatically things happen behind the scenes?
That's correct. We've set this up so that every time the opportunity field is updated to yes as an approved by manager, this will count it as one record. And if it's rejected, it will be set to no, so this will count it also as one record.
So if I'm a manager, the moment anybody approves or rejects, I get immediate notification in my dashboards or anything?
Everything is updated. You can also see by account what are the actual records that make up this number. If you create a custom link that will run a report for this account, and it will show you the actual details of what opportunity is what made.
Yeah, and I just take this report, put it on my dashboard, refresh every time, every morning, and boom, right there.
And it's right there when you need it.
Okay.
Great. For this next demo, Raja, I want to take a look at tracking how we're doing against a competitor on a particular deal or opportunity, and then trigger a plan of action based on this information. So let's go ahead and demo how this can be done. Again, just to best utilize our time in this demo, we've already created a few key components here to set the stage, and those are a pick list field to track competitive status, an email template, which will be used to notify the appropriate manager of the competitive status, a read-only field to track the deal risk, and finally, email templates to keep us on top of the action plan as reminders. So again, we'll go into more detail how each one of these fields and components will be used. So let's go ahead and get started. So here I am logged in as an administrator again. To create an approval process, workflow rule, follow the same path, but instead this time we go to workflow rules. Click on the new button and select the opportunity object. Our criteria in this case, we'll give it a name. So we're going to count this as a we'll leave the evaluation criteria as default, and in this case, we're looking for the competitive status field that every time it is updated to let us know that we are behind a competitor, it will trigger a set of actions. So here's where we'll define the actions that we want. So as we mentioned, we want to, first off, notify the manager that this deal has been set behind a competition. Number two, we want to update a field called the deal risk to high. And lastly, we'll set up time workflow to let us know and remind us down the road of what we need to do and take appropriate action on this. So first off, we'll create the email alert. We'll use the email template that we have already created. Competitor status update. And from here, we'll select the owner of the record, just so they know that this is going, and also a related user, which in this case is the manager of the user, which is the sales manager. And we'll save this process. As the next action here, what we'll do is we'll create a field update. This field update will update the deal risk. And we'll set it to high. Last but not least, we can create time-based workflows within the same workflow rule to notify us 2 and 5 days that action needs to be taken on this particular deal.
So you're saying I really don't need to create 2 different workflow rules, one for time dependent and one for the immediate. I can just, if the business rule says, then you can use the same thing.
That's correct, all within the same rule. In this case, we'll set it up to be 2 days after the rule has triggered. And we would also create another time trigger 5 days after the rule has triggered to remind us that we need to take action.
Also, I can have multiple time triggers, so that gives me a series of actions I want to take over time.
Series of actions, that's correct. For each one of these triggers, we'll set up an action. In this case, it will be an email alert. We'll call this one the 2-day notification. And again, we already have an email template. And send it off again to the owner of the record and to the sales manager, which is the manager of that user. Let's just call this. Okay. So, and for the 5-day, you can again create the email alert or select existing action. In this case, we have already created, and we want to send, let's say, the same email notification that we just created, which is the 2-day notification. I can just add it, don't need to create it again. It's already in the application and reuse it. With this, now we have all the information we need. Click the Done button and activate the workflow rule. So now let's go ahead and take a look at this from a user's perspective. Here again, we'll log in as Jason Self. Jason has another opportunity for which he knows that the competition is gaining some ground on one of his accounts, and he needs to get management involved to get some resources. So we'll set that as behind, and as you can see here, the deal risk has been updated to high. The manager has received a notification here shortly that we just created for the deal.
Great. So the right set of people will be immediately notified at the right set of time. This is great, but I'm an admin. Are you telling me that the immediate actions took and you showed me that the deal risk is high and also the manager got an email? But what about those time trigger actions, and how would I know when they're going to fire and they're somewhere in the black hole?
That's a great question. So let me show you. As an administrator, you also have many tools to keep track and debug and monitor what is going on with the workflow rules at all times. In this case, if you want to see your time-dependent actions, you can go to the monitoring section, look at the time-based workflow, and let's just do search. But here you can also filter by a workflow rule name, by the object, the schedule day, and see what your time-dependent actions are. So we've set this up to 2 days.
The 2 days and the 5 days show up here.
Exactly. So here's the 2-day notification. Here's the 5-day notification. If you don't need this to trigger anymore, you can also delete them here. Or, as you know, once the criteria is no longer met, they will automatically be removed.
So you mean to say that if I go back to the opportunity and I know it's not behind, I'm going to close the deal soon. If I do it before the 2 days, what happens?
This will automatically get removed from the queue.
So Salesforce is going to manage this queue automatically for me.
Exactly. And, again, as an administrator, you also have the ability to remove them yourself. Not only you have this as an administrator, but you can also go into the debug log here. And in this case, we already have Jason enabled. We can see the latest thing that Jason did on the application in terms of the workflow rule. So if I click View, it will actually give me a detailed review of what just happened in that workflow rule that we just created.
Hold on, you're telling me that I'm an admin, I can view into this? I don't need to call Salesforce to get the logs for me?
No, the logs are already enabled in your organization. You can troubleshoot to here. You can simply find the workflow rule that you just created by doing a simple search in the page. So let's look for competitive.
So that's the rule we just created.
That's the rule
get logged. All the information is there.
We logged everything that happened, whether it was a field update on the opportunity, the deal risk, the value was set to high, so you can keep track of all of this monitoring and debugging every workflow rule. This comes great. This comes very handy when you're testing new workflow rules in a sandbox environment, and before you move it into production, you can see exactly what's happening and troubleshoot it.
And you said you can turn on logging for specific people in the organization?
Exactly. So go into the debug logs, you can just turn it on for any new user, that you have within the application, and track up to 20 different requests that they have within the application.
So if I'm an admin and one of the salespeople persons come and say, hey, what's going on? There are things not happening, then I can just turn the debugging on for him and ask him to do his own chores, and I'll get to know exactly what he's doing behind the scenes.
Absolutely. You can come to the log and it will record everything that the user just did in the application.
Great.
Perfect. So with that, let me turn it back to the application. And let's focus on the key takeaways.
Great, Jose. That was great. So you saw in hands-on what a lot of things we covered, approval processes to workflow rules, time-based actions to monitoring and everything. So hopefully you got an understanding of what is possible. My key takeaways from this is essentially to start. You guys signed up to Salesforce. You're already using Salesforce. Then start planning a workflow by defining the processes which are critical to your business and start automating those using workflow rules or approval processes or whatever business process you have. And start using some of the features you saw today, whether it is the process visualizer to find out, print it out, share it to your people, rules to automate things, time-based workflow rules, cross-subject workflow, and the monitoring and debugging help you build this out easily. And more importantly, start reaping the benefits, right? What all of the mention I've said. And lastly, please do remember that workflow is dynamic. It is not static. As your business continues to change and evolve, and as you run your process better, you should be able to change those business processes in a sense very easily. Update your workflow to meet those changing needs. It's very, very easy to do. As you saw, it's just point and click. There is no coding required. There's no recompiling required. There's nothing. It's just point and click. The moment you do it, everything is live. And we also have the sandbox, and where you can use sandbox as your test bed, make changes here, and from sandbox you can directly push it to production, all your workflows and actions. So it's a very powerful point-and-click feature, very easy to use, designed for the business analyst and administrators. So please start using workflow and approvals. So with that, we're going to open up to questions. Okay, so I see some questions trickling in. The first question is, I'm really interested in cross-object workflow. When will it be available? Great question. Thank you. Well, as I mentioned earlier, cross-object workflow is available for certain aspects of Salesforce. You can have cross-object workflow on all custom object to custom object master detailed relationships and certain standard objects such as email message to case and case comments to case. We are actively working on supporting cross-object workflow for other standard objects such as opportunities, accounts, and contacts, and hopefully within the next release or two, we should be able to roll that out. We're just waiting to do it correctly because the whole opportunity and the line items and account is fairly complex, and we just need to make sure we do the right thing. Thanks for the question. Next question. Is there a way to dynamically assign approvers in an approval process? Great. Yes, there is. Actually, I'm glad you brought it up. This is a classic way of how in Salesforce, if you have people using Apex code for complicated stuff, approvals and Apex code actually are complementary to each other. In fact, I have an AppExchange package called dynamic routing. So if you go to AppExchange and search for dynamic approval routing, you'll get a package which essentially tells you how we can use Apex to find out just the pure routing capabilities and then plug in into the whole Salesforce record and the triggers and then approval processes will essentially route to the right people who are determined by Apex. So there is an AppExchange package called Dynamic Approval Routing. Please take a look at that, download. It has all the code, everything there, and README and everything to let you do that. I see one more. Yeah. When will the graphical editor be rolled out? Can I participate in a pilot, if at all there are any pilot programs? Well, thanks for bringing that up. As I said, we are working on the graphical editor, the editable part as we speak, and we are hoping to roll out a pilot. If you are really interested in participating, please contact your support rep or Salesforce representative. I'm in the process of collecting all the people interested in it, and we will reach out to you guys if you are interested and when we roll out the pilot. The next question, can approvals be assigned to sales team members? Very great questions. Currently, no. That is something we are trying to enhance the recipient list of approval process recipients, but we are working on that shortly. We want to use an approval at the account level. Can this be done? Yes, approval. If you are referring to creating an approval on the account object, that's certainly possible. Do all approvers need to be users of Salesforce? Yes, that is correct. Right now, all the approvers are essentially users within your Salesforce organization. Is there a process you can automate to follow up on an agent's call? If you are thinking about as a client customer of your company and you want to automate a process where you want to remind him as a follow-up, you can certainly do that by creating a time-based workflow rule and send an email to the contact or any email field. So suppose you say use cases, I have a case and a case is closed, and 2 days after the case was closed, you want to get a survey from your customer about how the experience was. And you can certainly do that by using time-based workflow and email alerts and send those email alerts to other people outside the organization. Are there any updates planned for the monitoring queue? I don't understand that question correctly. We are, if you can send some follow-up questions later, maybe I can try to understand that. Can we automate surveys to be sent out? You certainly can right now using Apex and Visualforce as a main mechanism. There might be some sample and other things out there. So you might want to refer to Apex and Visualforce. Not out of the box right now, I would say, but I think you could certainly do that using Apex and Visualforce. Our email approvals based are tied to the from address. Well, the email approvals, the way it works is when you send out an email, we override the reply to a specific email address, which is attached to the organization. So when you reply, that's how it does. And we have a question for one more question. Does the approval hierarchy stop at the immediate manager level? Great question. No. So the hierarchy is basically you can have all your users will have a field on the user record called manager. So I can have my manager set in my user record, and my manager will set his manager in his user record. And when you set up your approval process to use the manager hierarchy, we'll automatically traverse that across all the steps you have.
And for any other questions, we can always answer any of your questions. As a follow-up, you can contact your direct support rep or just direct Salesforce accordingly.
So thank you all for attending this webinar. So we're going to provide you a quick survey. We'd really, really appreciate it. If you can complete the survey, it is very, very valuable to us to get feedback and to improve it better for going forward. And you will get an email. All the registered attendees will get an email with the links to recording and the demo downloads. And I cannot say it anymore. Please use ID Exchange. As a PM, I look at it regularly to make sure I prioritize my requests. And as I said, from address to email, it is a classic example where I use ID Exchange a lot. And for any other answers, the community is great. You probably get answers faster than in any other way. Seriously, if you just post your question, it's very active. And as Jose said, customers who has dedicated support rep, and time is limited here, if you have any more questions, please reach out to them. Lastly, Dreamforce. I don't know if people are aware. That's our annual conference. It's starting on November 17th. It's one of the better conferences ever conducted in my experience in Salesforce. It's great if you want to meet me in person or any other PMs in person to have one-on-one time. I think it's great, and we have demo booths. All our job there is to help you guys out, and we do hands-on stuff. So please register to Dreamforce if you have not already, and see me out there. And we have posted several Force.com demos, including workflow demo. So it's on YouTube. So we are on YouTube. So please check it out. Thank you guys for attending.
Great. Thank you.